I was recently asked how I achieved this type of warm look on some edits that I've done. And I've decided to make a video tutorial about it where I will be showing the settings that I've used in Lightroom to go for this warm look. And also at the end, create a preset so that then we can just take and apply to basically any image that we want to, where the main idea of the edit is to apply warmth to the lights and midtones of the image while not doing much with the darks, or maybe decide what to do with the dark portions of the image depending on what type of look we want to go for, whether it being a contrasty look or a more of a flat look. So with that, we can just go into Lightroom and begin the edit. I have selected a couple of photos where I believe this type of look will look nice. So what I'll be doing is work on this one here to create a preset, and once that is done, apply it to the others. So let's just go into Develop tab, and I usually begin with some basic settings that I always like to do at first. The first one being cropping. For this one, I'll just go with widescreen crop like so. And then for this one in particular, I would like to straighten the vertical lines by using this vertical tool. I'm saying here that I would like this line to be straight, and as well as this one. So what this does now is, looking at the before and after, it just makes vertical lines look vertical as they should. Once that is done, then I will go into the Detail tab. I usually don't apply any sharpening at all to my photos because they are already sharp enough. Then I also never apply luminance or noise reduction for the luminance. I don't mind the grain, but I do apply color reduction, noise reduction. So for that, I'll just zoom into a dark spot here. And usually what I do is I completely remove detail, because this just adds even more color noise. And smoothness, I take it all the way to the top. And what this does is remove these kind of magenta and green patches, kind of like what you would see on a cheetah, except they're magenta and green. You can see them here, and by increasing the smoothness slider, everything looks nice and smooth, and those patches are gone. Regarding the color itself, what I like to do is completely remove it and then slightly begin increasing it until I see that there is no more noise, just so that I don't overdo with the noise reduction. So for this one, I think that about 13 should be fine. And that takes care of some basic settings that I like to begin with. Now focusing on achieving the warm look itself, we are going to take the temperature and increase it. For this look, about 30,000 should be fine. Anything above that is not really going to make a difference, so I'll just keep it at around 31,000. And also I will be increasing or moving the tint towards magenta, just to remove even further the green from the image and make it even warmer. So about 35 is what I found out to be to look nice for the edit. Then regarding the basic settings, we'll come back to these ones later. Down here in the color grading, I'll be adding just a little bit of warmth to the midtones, like so, not too much, and same for the highlights. And I will not be doing anything to the shadows. Then also I will add a little bit of blending to smoothen the transition between the midtones and the highlights, and also increase the balance a little bit And what this does is say that we want the color grading to be affected more on the light portions of the image rather than the darker portions, like so. Then for the HSL, for the hue, all I'm going to do is move the orange a little bit towards the red. So as you can see, it makes the oranges slightly more red, like so. For saturation, we are going to increase the warm colors, not too much, just slightly. Then the orange a little bit less than the red, and the yellows even less, like so, while keeping all the other colors at a lower value, but not removing them completely. And for the luminance, again, we're going to increase the warm colors, like so, just a little bit, and we're going to decrease all the other ones, but not as much as the saturation. And that takes care of the HSL tab as well. For the tone curve, all I'm going to do is apply a very slight S-curve. I'll add a point right here in the middle so that we don't mess with the highlights, and slightly lower the darks to add a little bit of contrast. And also what I found that looks nice for this edit is to slightly lift the shadows to about 5, not to achieve a fade look, but just to avoid clipping in the blacks. And also the same for the whites. Lower them a little bit just to avoid clipping. And that is it for the tone curve as well. Now back to the basic settings at the top. Exposure and contrast are going to be specific to every image to which we are going to apply the preset. Contrast we will not mess with as much, and exposure for this one, I think I'm just going to increase it a little bit like this. Regarding highlights, shadows, whites and blacks, generally for this look we will want to increase the highlights and the whites as well. And for the shadows and blacks, again, is going to be more of a preference of what kind of look we want to go for. If we want the image to look more contrasty, then we're going to decrease them both, like so. And there, as you can see, there is a big difference in contrast between the dark portions and the light portions. But maybe what we want is more of a flat look, and for that we can increase the shadows and maybe in this case lower the blacks, like so. And this gives us more of a flat look rather than a contrasty look. But again, it's really a matter of preference of what we're going for. I think for this one, I'm just going to leave it like so. 3 very important settings for this type of edit are going to be the texture, clarity and dehaze. For the texture, I will decrease it to about 25, just because texture is just some different type of contrast and adds some sort of sharpening that we don't want for this look. Then I will use the dehaze next. We do not want to remove haze from this type of, to achieve this type of look, but rather we want to add haze and add this sort of mist to the image. And for that, I'm going to move the dehaze slider to the left, like so. And as you can see, this makes the image sort of misty or hazy. It gives it kind of a surreal look as well. As for the clarity, as well, again, we don't want to add clarity because it's just a different type of contrast. We want to remove clarity. And what this is going to do, if you take a look at the portions that are glowing or where there is contrast between highlights and shadows, like this line here, or also up here, what this clarity is, by removing clarity, what it's going to do is going to add some sort of like a glow to those contrasty portions, like so. We will also be modifying these settings for each setting depending on what we want to go for. And maybe for this one I will just not go as far, but we will see how these settings will affect other images. And with that, I believe that we are done modifying the settings. So what we can do now is create a preset. Oh, I already have it there, but I'll just I'll delete this one and create a new one. I forgot to mention that I was inspired by the movie Blade Runner 2049 for this sort of look, and I'll just call it that. What we want as part of the preset is we don't really care about the profile because this is going to depend on each camera. We do want to add the white balance because this is the temperature and tint which we want to apply to each photo. Exposure and contrast will be specific to each one, and we don't want them as part of the preset. Highlights and whites, again, we will want them lifted for all photos to which we apply the preset, but not the shadows and blacks. We will modify those depending on what we want, what type of look we want to achieve. Texture, clarity, and dehaze, they will be part of the final look because generally we want them to be at a lower value. Vibrance and saturation we don't care much about. Tone curve, we will want the S curve to be applied to all of them. Same for the HSL and color grading. And as for the details, I will just leave the sharpening and luminance noise reduction in. Color noise reduction will really depend on the ISO used for each one, so I will not select that one. And that's about it. And also I don't want the slider support. And I will go ahead and just create the preset. And now let's see what it will look like if we apply it to some other photos. So I will just select this one. I will give it a quick crop here just to center our subject like so. And then apply the preset. And as you can see, this one, it looks weird right now because this one in particular is way too overexposed. So I will decrease the exposure a little bit like so. And now again, regarding the shadows and blacks, what it really is depends on what we want it to achieve. For this one, I think that if we decrease the shadows a little bit and not too much with the blacks, it's going to look nice, just like so. Then for the clarity and dehaze, I think they're also good. Maybe add a little bit of more haze, like so. And there we have it. Just by applying the preset, now we have achieved the same look. On this one, I believe it looks quite nice. Maybe for this one, we can also lift a little bit more the blacks. In this particular case now, to actually go for the fade look on the darker portions of the image, which look very nice. Let's try another one. Again, this one is kind of overexposed, so I will decrease the exposure, maybe about here. Also give it a quick crop like so. All right, and for this one, I believe that lowering the shadows like this and blacks will look nicer rather than lifting them, just to have the contrasty down here, the contrast between the dark portions and the lighter portions of the image. And we can also play some more with the dehaze and clarity and go for the type of look that we want. Maybe around here, like so. It looks nice. All right, let's try another one. Give it a quick crop. Maybe like so. And as you can see on this one, it looks really nice just by applying the preset. So not much really to do here. I won't do much. I really like how it looks just like this, just how it is. And let's go with one last. This one is another one where it looks nice just by applying the preset, but we will mess with some settings and see if we can make it even better. I'll go for a crop maybe like this and lower the exposure slightly. And shadows for this one, I'm going to decrease them just to make the mountains in the distance a little bit darker and have that contrast between the darks and the lights. And I like how it looks with adding even more haze and clarity on this one. Maybe like this. And not as much white. And it looks nice and even. And here we have it, another one where we're, by simply applying the preset and tweaking some settings, we have now achieved the same look.